Thanks for that introduction. And I always like to get through the slides so I can talk or have answer a lot of questions. And so I'll try and do that. I have to say, the other day I was over at the ribbon cutting for the Trouts, and they had this book there, historical book of folks that were involved. And Aaron, your dad was in there in several pictures, and it was really cool to see that. As I got to know him, over the last few years, and really miss him. And so that was really cool. He just had a real impact on the Redmond community and on my life. So just wanted to acknowledge that, especially as you're getting the flag, which is awesome. So yeah. Okay, so I'll jump in here. Some of you have seen this before, so I apologize, Kimmy. If you need to leave, go for it. Don't worry about it. So I'll start off with who we are at REDI, because it's not just me. It's also Mary Knight, who has been with REDI getting on 10 years now, and she's our marketing, events, and community relations. I got to update that. And then we added Jessica about a year and a half ago, and she works with our finance and board support and everything else. And then I've been with REDI now just a little over 4 years, and I took over for John Stark, who many of you know, who is now the CEO of EDCO, and he's been doing that for 4 years. We do have a strategic plan, and I'm sure all you can read that, but if you can't, here I'll point out a few things, is what we're really focusing on at REDI, 4 main areas. Sort of the move, start, grow, companies that are moving here, companies that are starting, companies that are growing here, reducing barriers at the local, regional, and state level. And a lot of that comes through our advocacy with the state legislature and with the governor around policies that are not helpful to business. Internally, focusing on sustainable growth and operational efficiency so we can operate, and that's why we have John over here as our CPA to make sure we don't get out of line. And then really working with our business partnerships. So we have a lot of partners in the community because economic development involves more than just the industrial growth. It involves housing, it involves childcare, it involves all those other things that make a whole community. So it's really important that we acknowledge our partners because we do a lot of work with them throughout the year. How does REDI get its funding? So half of our funding comes from public sources, about 48% from the city of Redmond, 5% from Deschutes County, and then about 47% comes from investors or members who support us annually. And if you are a supporter, we appreciate that. If you want to be one, please see me after. We have opportunities from $250 a year to $7,500 a year. And then we do 4 signature events a year. We just had our annual luncheon, which was a big success. We had almost 350 people there at the fairgrounds. That was a record for us. And we're looking to continue to see that grow because Redmond continues to grow. So I'll just touch on some of the high-level things that we do. I'm sort of like a concierge. So when a business is interested in Redmond at a number of levels, they'll come and we'll have a conversation. It could be, hey, I want to move my company here, and I'm going to move my employees, and I want to know, what is this community like, and what are the schools like, and the housing, and all those things that make up Redmond. And that's really easy to talk about, as you all know, because it's such a fantastic community. There are tax incentives for businesses that want to build or add equipment here, and that's called the Greater Redmond Area Enterprise Zone program. So I manage that program. We have a number of companies that are receiving 3 to 5 years of tax abatement as an incentive for them to add equipment or build a new building, that type of a thing. So it's just a early incentive for them. Pretty much work with every traded sector business that comes into Redmond, and traded sector means a business that is located here, but they're selling goods and services outside the region, which brings new money into the region and circulates in, which lifts the region. So that's really the focus of the types of companies. I do work with some other companies. I collaborate with Chuck Arnold at the city, who focuses more on the commercial businesses, the retail businesses downtown, that type of a thing. So we have a really good partnership there. I help market land, but I'm not a broker and I don't make any money there, which kind of disappoints me sometimes, but that's okay. So we have 750 acres just south of us here that's owned by Department of State Lands. The state owns it. It is available for large lot projects, so minimum 50 acres and up to 200 acres or more, depending on what a company would need. Well, currently we have been working with a potential user company that would build out the first 50 acres. And so excited about that because we haven't had any development down there yet in like a dozen years or so since that became available. But we're making progress here in the last year or so, and hopefully soon I'll be able to talk more about that because it's a very exciting project. The city also owns land called Desert Rise, which is east of 17th Street. It's been a little bit in the news lately. And so that land is also land that we market and try and help sell. The real purpose of that, it's land that the city got from the county very inexpensively in the past. And the idea is that you have to be a business owner to buy that land and add employment to that land. So you can't be a speculative developer and build what we call a flex space or a leasable space. You have to actually be a business. So I help market and get that land sold for the city. Anytime a company is looking to grow or come here, I do a lot of sort of site selection type of work. And then when they figure out what they want to do, I'll connect them with a broker or give them multiple brokers to select from so they can actually purchase that property. One of the other things that is important for development is infrastructure. So we have to have water, sewer, power, all these different things. So we have 750 acres, but we don't have roads through there. We don't have water and sewer lines through there. So when a project goes forward, that's very expensive. And how that gets funded and working with state and local resources to help support that, for the most part, development pays for most of that, but there are incentives and different programs that the state has to help get that moving, especially for a project like this that would be the first of maybe catalyzing additional growth down there. Financing, so if companies need financing for their projects, we have different partners we can connect them with. Business Oregon has great programs. We work on workforce development, manufacturing, technology education. I'll talk a little bit about that toward the end. And then childcare expansion. I've worked with Neighbor Impact on their childcare expansion project. We've got, I should have looked to see what the number is, but it's between 100 and 200 new childcare slots in Redmond over the last few years. I think it might even be more than that at this point. So throughout the year, I work with about 130 companies that are here in Redmond. Some newer ones up there, Equipment Share, which is on the north end of town. Trying to think what else is newer up there. Ben Teardrop is another newer one that built a facility here. I'll talk about them also in a few minutes. So I'm going to pop through these slides. These are 10 years of done deal projects. That means a project where they are occupying the space and they're using the space. And I show this, I'll talk the numbers, but mainly just so you can kind of see the uneven nature of this business. This is, so going back to 2016, this is for a benchmark 6 projects. So during the time of, the 2021, 2022, things slowed down and now things are kind of coming back again. We're going to have several really great projects this year that finish. The jobs, we had a few significant projects, but they went down and now they're starting to come back up again. And this is about 125 jobs for last year for reference. And then capital investment. So capital investment continues to grow regardless of the number of jobs or the number of projects, as you can see. So that's been on an upward trend. It's just a lot more expensive to build and to get a project done these days, which is not surprising to anyone. When we look at what's coming in the pipeline, the number of projects are down a little bit. It's 22 for reference. 2026, this is 22 projects. However, within those projects, the number of jobs, which is just under 3,000, and the potential capital investment, which is just under 800 million, is still pretty high. And I'll talk about those in a minute. So here's one project that's out on East Antler Avenue. So this is Baselite. They manufacture concrete products from blocks to pavers and all those types of things. They're a Northwest family-owned company. And they built, that is their new showroom that they're going to be opening up here like in the next month or so. They're going to have a ribbon cutting on that. Behind that will be a brand new manufacturing facility. So they did a phase 1, phase 2, because the equipment that's going in the manufacturing facility is coming from Europe, and it's taken like a few years to get that equipment. So they wanted to go ahead and do their showroom, and then once they get moved in there, they will they'll start building on the manufacturing facility. That's just another, I need to get a newer picture too, because it's a little closer to being done. Pultex is a plastics manufacturer focusing mainly on the medical industry. Paul Filipowicz started basically in Tumalo in a barn, and then moved into Redmond, and they've been leasing space, and now they finally were able to purchase a piece of property and build their first manufacturing facility. This is just off 9th Street. If you're going on 9th Street, it's on the west side. So there'll be 12 new jobs there, and that's a 10,000 square foot facility. And then Nosler is consolidating their operations here to Redmond from Bend. So they already have about a 30,000 square foot facility. This is 80,000 square feet, scheduled to be completed at the end of July-ish. That's about 150 new jobs. They're not new to the region, but they'll be new to Redmond from Bend. And then the property that they own in Bend, many of you may be aware of, they're selling that for other, probably higher and better uses for that part of Bend, which is also helping them to fund this project. And something I just toured out there the other day. So I'm on 6th Street where this photo is, but right here, sort of in front of the building, they have a pad that if they want to expand more later, they can build another 32,000 square foot building there. So they're not only consolidating, but they're thinking about the future. They also own land around the property that they're building on. So great foresight. And then the one that is pretty big news for Central Oregon is the new Amazon facility. So that was turned over to them at the end of March. And I don't know if some of you have seen the ads on TV. They're looking for drivers at this point. And I was unofficially told they were going to open at the end of this month, but I'm not sure if they're on track for that or not. But this will bring 170 to 300 new jobs. They say 170 officially, but behind the scenes, they were telling me around holidays and things like that, where it will be busier, they will have up to 300 jobs, and eventually those little gray prime trucks running around. And I think the Redmond Post Office is excited about this because they've been contracting, delivering their packages for a while and just overwhelmed, and this is really going to help everything sort of balance out in that system. So looking at vacancy rates, we've had historically low vacancy rates. This just goes back to 2024. This is 3% here. You know, anything below 5 is pretty minimal. We had a jump in the last quarter of 2025 because a new building came online. A 16,000 square foot building came online, which is, by the way, already leased. So that was enough because there's so little in the pipeline that it pushed it up. And so every time a new building comes, it pushes it up, and then it seems as if it doesn't last long on the market, and then we're back down again. So we are continuing to see investment in what we'd call spec or flex development. That 18,000 square foot building was the newly delivered. There's a 40,000 square foot building that's under construction that we could hit with a rock from here that you all drove by as you were coming in. And there's 71,000 square feet planned, and actually potentially more than that, potentially 171,000 square feet planned based on some new recent information. So the fact that we're continuing to have investment in these flex or spec buildings is good news, because that gives more room for businesses to either come or grow here. Most of them are growing here right now. And this reflects that. So about two-thirds of the projects are retention and expansion projects, and about a third are recruitment projects in our pipeline. And it's been fairly stable, but recently I've been getting some new requests from companies, one out of California that's interested in relocating here. They said, I don't want to offend the gentleman here, but they're like, yeah, my board of directors told me I had to get out of California, so they're looking at coming to Redmond. When you look at the size of projects from the number of employees, it's really well balanced from very small to very large. So this is, let's see, less than 5 employees, going this way, I guess, 6 to 20, 21 to 100, and greater than 100. So the types of companies that are coming here are all over the board as far as size goes. Other than a few companies, we really have small businesses here. BaseX, I think they've reported 1,055 jobs here just recently. Medline is 400 and some jobs, but most of the others are not quite that big. And Redmond thrives on those small to medium-sized manufacturing businesses. So one other thing I will touch on, so I had mentioned about workforce. So workforce is important. One of the good things that we have going for us in Central Oregon and Redmond specifically is we continue to see population growth. Now that's slowed a lot, right? A couple of years ago it was like 3% or more, which was fairly significant. There was like 7 people a day moving here. So that's slowed down. But compared to the rest of the state where it's going in the negative, it's positive growth. And I've lived here for 41 years, and I don't think there's ever been negative growth in any of the years I've lived here in Central Oregon. Excuse me, but we have to have those people so we can have workers. Redmond High School is investing $10 million into expanding their CTE and manufacturing programs. That was part of the bond that was passed a few years ago. So they are, I believe, this summer going to start work on that expansion. And they have some other commitments from private industry to support them with equipment and things, so the investment is actually higher than that. We have a very high level manufacturing program at Redmond High School. And then COCC is investing $8 million in expanding their manufacturing program and the MATC building it's called. And they just got another $2.2 million from the feds to also help with programming and equipment. So their investment is really over $10 million in expanding that. And they're doing a really good job of revitalizing that program, connecting with our manufacturing employers to make sure that what they're teaching and what the curriculum is going to turn out students that can get into the workforce when they graduate. So that's very exciting that we're investing in workforce. We have people coming. There's one other note, Sharan Klein, our school superintendent, has mentioned, and he's president of our board currently, that Redmond, the Redmond School District is one of just a couple in Oregon that actually grew as well. So it grew a little bit, but most of the other school districts, again, were contracting. And Redmond, and he said there was one other one also grew a little bit, but that's a good sign for Redmond that we have young families coming here because their kids are going into school, and that bodes well for the future of the community. So that's the end of my prepared remarks. I'm happy to chat about whatever. Yes, sir.
Thank you. The number you've occasionally thrown up on job openings, whatever you want to call new employees for these expansions and new businesses, Where do you see that coming from? These people.
Oh, the people. So they either have to come from the growth of the population in the region, or if it's a company that is coming from outside the region, they would be bringing employees with them. But that is a challenge. So when I talk to companies and they say, hey, you know, we want to come there, or we're growing, do you guys do you have the workforce here to help support us? And you know, some of that's coming in from the outside, some of it is, you know, the people that are here, but that's not a unique challenge to Central Oregon because population is declining, or growth of population is declining nationally. People aren't having the number of kids. Other communities are experiencing this as well. So as we look to the future, it's going to have to come from people from the outside coming here. That's really how we're going to be able to support the growth of these companies.
Tag on to that, if I may. These jobs, and it may not fit your umbrella, but what they'll get, the salaries may be for these various types of jobs. And more people need more housing, and we keep reading, they can't afford this new housing, so they live in Prineville and work in Redmond or something. Well, do you know what? Do you have any two bits worth that mention about that?
So
Wages?
So wages and housing. Yeah. So housing is expensive here. When you look over the last 3 years, it's been fairly consistent. The median price of a house in Redmond is right around $500,000. It's less in Prineville, Madras, Lapine. It's more in Bend, obviously. So we're sort of in the middle here, but that's still, to your point, expensive, right? And we do have organizations like Rooted Homes and a few others I can't think of off of the top of my head, where they're building, where you buy the house and you lease the land, so you can buy the house for like $250,000, but you're just doing a land lease, so that we're getting Habitat for Humanity. Yeah, so there are organizations that are doing more affordable housing, but it's still coming to support, you know, to your point. And the wages, so the jobs of the companies that we focus on, we are more living wage jobs. That's part of, you know, as we grow the job base here, we want the jobs to be living wage jobs. And the incentives that I talked about in the very beginning, some of those are based on having a certain wage, so that if they don't meet that wage, then they don't get as long of a period of time for their incentive. Yes.
So we hear a lot about sustainable growth. That seems to be a buzzword that gets thrown out. So could you define what that means from your perspective? And then how are you going to know, you know, what are the measurements to say, yeah, we're meeting this, whatever definition of sustainable growth is?
That's a good question. I mean, sustainable can mean a lot of different things. So nothing grows like evenly, right? It's like we get just the right amount of housing with just the right amount of childcare with just the right amount of jobs, you know, that the companies are bringing. It kind of staggers. And so I would say sustainable growth is growth that we can keep up with. And I say we, I mean the community. And to the city's credit, they have been focused on getting more housing built. And as you get more housing built, you get more supply that, you know, to meet the demand, that moderates the pricing. It doesn't continue to escalate. So if we can continue, if this community can continue to grow and we can meet the housing and the job demands of the folks that are coming here and maintain our I'll call it a family culture, that's what I like to say, I think that's sustainable growth. Whoa, that was all at one time.
Follow on sustainability. Is there any consideration given to or encouragement of future companies coming here that are going to be low energy users or low developing solar on their roofs or low water facilities in there? Do you encourage that? I've asked the mayor several times over the years why don't we require every new building to have solar on the roof? And he sort of pushes me, that's too expensive. That's his short answer.
It could be, yeah.
But still, that's part of a definition of sustainability is, hey, come here.
Environmentally sustainable, yeah. So we have an organization called Energy Trust, and they do a fantastic job. We partner with them, and they come in and talk with the companies that are, you know, they can be here already, but they may be doing like an upgrade. It could be lighting, it could be solar, it could be a number of things, and they have incentives for those programs to help companies see an ROI on that, return on investment on that. So we do push that for sure, right? Because we have limited power here. We need to get more power into the region to support not just industrial growth, but just the housing growth as well. So I think we always have to be aware of that, and but we have to be careful too in that, so I don't know if there's folks from Bend here, but you know, they're pushing an electrification policy in the city of Bend, which is saying, hey, we're going to penalize you if you put in natural gas in your house, or we're going to incentivize you if you put all electric appliances in. Well, on the merits of that, maybe that's not a bad idea, but the fact that we don't have the power to sustain or support that is a really bad idea, and they don't seem to mind, and they're pushing for that, but that's going to drive electricity prices up because the demand's going to go up and we don't have enough supply and demand. So there you go, see? So there are ways to mitigate it. But so you have to be practical, in my opinion, in how you approach environmental conservatism. So, John.
What would you say is like the best asset that Central Oregon has to draw people here, besides the beautiful views?
I was just going to say, you're looking at it.
And then what's the most challenging thing that the business is not?
Well, the asset is the outdoor amenities. I mean, that's why people continue to come here. The businesses I talk to, the people that the businesses are hiring, there's a business that hired a person who's a high-level person to help them. They said they had, they were last in California, I believe, but they had traveled all over, and they did know somebody here, but they were like, this is where we want to raise our family because of the outdoors and all that affords. I think within Central Oregon, every community has a different personality. And the thing I like about Redmond is it's sort of this blue-collar family community. I mean, you know, like Kiwanis and Rotary, and there's a lot of people that give their time above and beyond just what they do for work. And that community mindset, I think, is a huge benefit here. So did that answer?
Yeah. So what's the most challenging?
Oh, the most challenging. I knew there was another part. The most challenging part, it's like all these different pieces. Right now, power is a challenging part for growth, and water. I heard water, of course. I don't know if I think the mayor has talked about this publicly, but COID is going to pipe the canal, the main canal from Bend to Redmond, and it's like a lot of that water goes down in the aquifer that winds up in Redmond because it's all flowing this way. And he's like, time out, you're taking our water, you need to give that back to us somehow. And that'll be an interesting conversation to see how all that unfolds. But I think there's merits to what he's saying. And, you know, I have 5 acres south of town, and I've got irrigation water, and I've got a well, and I'm thinking about those things too, right? Because I don't want my well to go dry, and I want to have enough water to get hay for my cows and pigs that I'm raising. So, but those are probably some of the bigger challenges. Costs are always a challenge for companies getting people to move here. There was so I was talking to someone who works for a company here that's located in multiple states. They moved here from Oklahoma, and their pay didn't change from when they moved from Oklahoma to Oregon. But guess what? Their paycheck changed. It went way down. And it was like, So taxation, regulation, those are big challenges for businesses. And that was just a really stark example, because I hadn't thought of it that way. You don't see that comparison made too often, but definitely it costs more, not only just to live here, but from a taxation standpoint.
So a business moves here, maybe they're struggling to find employees, their product is struggling, their business is struggling. What resources, do they have resources?
Oh yeah, very much so. So I would qualify that as technical assistance, and in my old job working for the Small Business Development Center organization, I did a lot of that. I might do a little, but we have partners we'll bring in to work with them on that, depending on what the specific issue is, so that they can try and turn that around.
Expanding on what the lady just said, the local populace don't have the skills to take some of these jobs. Is there any chance that REDI could be cooperating with the high schools to teach these skills?
Yes, so we do. So we work with Redmond High School, we work with COCC, and even OSU Cascades at some level. Even though they're in Bend, they're very regional. And we are a conduit between what the businesses need and the programs they offer. So we talk all the time, and it's like, hey, this business says they need this. Are you offering this, or is there a way for you to include this? A good example is BASX and their HVAC technology, and they've been working with some of the COCC and OSU Cascades, because they need engineers too, to say, hey, can you create programs that will produce workers for us? And those conversations are happening. Yeah.
Steve, you talked about how you use that word, court some of these companies when they're in the process of deciding if Redmond's their landing spot. This is probably a two-part question, but first, what does that look like? Are you reaching out to them and saying Redmond's a beautiful place to come, or are they coming to you and saying, Steve, is Redmond right for us? And then on the flip side of that, when you have a company like a Harbor Freight or a Tractor Supply or somebody who's coming to town, do they have resources that they can utilize with you, or is that just because they're doing it all on their own, or they?
Yeah, well, I'll do the second part first. Sure. So yeah, we don't have a lot of resources for them with regard to incentives, because if they were headquartered here, that'd be different, right? Because then you've got money coming in, but they're more of a retail outlet, even though they're a national chain. So there really aren't incentives to help them out. What's really interesting with some of those larger chains too is they have their own people that do this every day, right? Their own internal people, like Amazon has their own internal people when they were looking for space. So I worked really closely with Amazon in the beginning, trying to find something that would work, and then found a piece of property. We moved an irrigation canal and made it work, and that only happened because they have a lot of money. But for the most part, the Tractor Supplies, I've never talked to anybody there, and I don't think Chuck in the city has, because if they were putting a facility within the urban renewal district and there were potential incentives, then he could help them, but not those. And it's getting talked about. It's really close to being announced, and this is Chuck's deal. But the old Joann's is going to have a new tenant soon, and I think it's going to be very exciting for Redmond. And it's not Trader Joe's, just because I know it's not. I've publicly stated that, but that's going to be a really cool thing, and there are incentives, and what goes in there might not be the only location. There might be other locations around the country. So there could be incentives for a national organization that has multiple locations if they're in the right spot like that. And then the first part of your question was, it's the pitching catching question is what I call it. So I love baseball, and I just heard the Beavers won today or yesterday. Yesterday they're like 6th or 7th in the nation in their baseball, something like that. So they're doing well. Anyway, REDI and EDCO in general, the regional organization that technically, and I work for EDCO, and I'm the REDI director. We do more catching than pitching. The reason is because we have enough inbound inquiries to keep us more than busy. And so when I do sit down with someone who is interested and they reach out, usually it's a conversation about the area because they're not from here, they don't know. And so we talk about all of that. This one in California that is looking at coming here, we have a whole pitch deck we put together that basically talks about the whole community, everything from education to the outdoor amenities to what does the power cost to all those different things that they're going to want to know, with a lot of beautiful pictures of Central Oregon and Redmond in particular. And so those are tools that we use to help them see what it's like here.
You mentioned the high school and the COCC a number of times. Why don't we get out of the bottom and ask about childcare? I wonder, how do you encourage childcare to grow or to be more available?
So Neighbor Impact is the lead partner there, and they just opened up in the old Hayden Homes offices on 126 west of town. They took that over, just had a little ribbon cutting here the other day or grand opening. So they're the ones that take the lead. We have what's called the Redmond Child Care Task Force, which is made up of some Neighbor Impact people, child care providers, City of Redmond, myself, and that's been going since before I got here. There's not one in Bend, there's not one in any other community. There's a Redmond Child Care Task Force, and some of the work we do bleeds over into other communities, but we're leading that. The state provided money a few years ago to Neighbor Impact to invest in either expansions or new projects where they have to, it's expensive to get a building to the point where you can do childcare, right? Because you have to have specialty things and all that stuff. And so we've invested several $1 million of state money into Redmond that helped increase the number of childcare slots here. So that's a more specific example. And I'm getting the hook here, I think. I think I'm getting the hook.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I'm sure if people have questions.
Yeah. Oh, I'll stick around a little bit after. I got to give Penny a hug. I haven't seen her in a while.
Okay, and we.
Oh, thank you.
Bar wants to take a picture.
Oh.